Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today on this perfect spring day, we have the opportunity to explore a wonderfully restored 1976 Triumph TR6. Now, the Triumph TR6 represents a really great value in the vintage sports car market because these can be had for low money, somewhere in the teens to the 20s, a perfect example, maybe up to $50,000. And just like Jaguar E-Types, if you've got a little extra to spend to get to that top tier, you can end up with a car that's been restored and honestly had too much money put into it. This one, I think we counted up the receipts to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000. And this owner will never get their money back. They'll probably end up on the higher end of the sale price, somewhere in that $40,000 to $50,000 when this goes up to auction on Bring a Trailer. But for the buyer, this is an incredible value. Recently, we drove a whole bunch of E-Types, and one of those E-Types actually had $600,000 of restoration receipts. The car sold for a little over $200,000, so there's clearly not a return on investment for the owner, but shouldn't that be the case? Shouldn't we just restore, preserve, and enjoy things for the sake of it? Do we always need to make a business case out of it? And if you need to make a business case out of it, be on the buying end and not on the restoring end. So this is probably the nicest 76 TR6 I've ever seen. We've driven a few on the channel. Some I like, some I don't. This one drives beautifully. So what's the deal? The TR6, while it's a British sports car, was almost entirely sold in the United States. They made somewhere in the neighborhood of 90,000 of them. Over 80,000 of them were exported from the UK into the US. Only about 8,000 were sold in the UK. So honestly, this is more of a rare car in Britain than it is here. We see these all over the place, but because this doesn't have exceedingly high values, you just don't see them restored and taken care of. So it is really special when you see somebody who's taken one of these cars and put a whole lot of love into it. But first, let's get some stats. You've got a body-on-frame sports car. You've got a 2.5-liter inline 6 under the hood with twin Zenith Stromberg carbs. Rear-wheel drive, of course, 4-speed manual gearbox. I don't believe this one has an electronic overdrive, although that was an option in the later cars. The interior of this car is fantastic. I don't think I've ever seen one quite this well done. A lot of times these are really ratty, and the values kind of dictate what that's going to be. Why would you put all this money into a car if you're not necessarily going to see a return? But that's what art is. This car is never going to set any new records. It's just going to be a fun, gorgeous driving experience, and I would like to see more of that ethos in the car world. We'll talk about that as we get rolling. Let me get under the hood of this thing if I can find the pull here. There it is. It's a thing. Sometimes these British cars, not the most ergonomic. So let's get under the hood just so you can see the power plant. Oh, there she is, making about 100 horsepower out of this 2.5 liter. So it's not the strongest thing in the world, but what I like about these engines is they have great juicy mid-range torque. This is a really nice cruiser. It's good when you get into that pedal and it just has torque and moves because there's really not much weight to this thing. Now, even though this car was perfectly restored as far as I can tell, I mean, look at this, everything's like brand new. That's mirror finish, everything's great. We did actually take this car out recently and ran into some problems. Nothing major, but we had to clean out the carbs, replace a fuel filter. We were getting some junk, so that's all cleared out. And then after that was done, oh, lo and behold, an electrical issue. So you are going to see in the trunk a box, probably not to any Triumph owner's surprise, an original alternator, or at least the alternator that was in the car with, in parentheses, bad. Not the alternator we're going to use. Now this one, I don't know if this was actually ever on the car, these struts. They are really strong. Maybe I've only driven these cars where they had busted out struts, but it has to have because there's no lock here. Either way, these are really strong, but something else you're always going to want to keep in your Triumph or any real British sports car is the complete official Triumph TR6 manual, the driver's handbook, the workshop manual, because look, no matter what you do to this car, you will find a way. You will find a way to allow this to strand you. But that's all part of the driving experience. So let's close it up and take it for a ride because these are really fun to drive, even if it's 100 horsepower and potentially Lucas Electronics giving us troubles along the way. To start our TR6, our ignition is way down here under the steering wheel. Now, if it was cold, I'd tell you to pull this choke. We don't need to do that. We've been driving it, and I'm hoping everything just goes smoothly. And that's kind of one of the fun things about these cars. There's always a little bit of a gamble in any British sports car. No matter how much love was put into it, you're going to have to become at least a slight DIYer. It's just the way it goes. But anyway, let's get this thing started up. We've got a good neutral. Give it a little bit of throttle. Jumps right to life. She'll find her idle, don't worry. We do have shoulder belts in this car, which I kind of dig. I like having some semblance of safety, despite the fact that there's absolutely zero roll protection. So we'll do our best not to roll it. This might be the most well put together Triumph TR6 I've ever driven, and even then, they just always feel a little home built. They always feel a little like sloppy in a characterful way though. But the good news is the transmission feels tight as a drum, and so do these brakes. So I'm going to go ahead and not believe this speedometer. It's reading what I think feels pretty high. I don't think we're going anywhere near that speed. But it is fun to think if that was my 0 to 60, that's pretty darn good. What I like about driving these cars is they're just fun and engaging, and like, we're not going 60 right now, I assure you. It is so entertaining to drive this at like reasonable normal speeds and still feel like you're kind of carving corners. See, what can we do about wind noise? Can we get this better? Oh, you fighter. There we go. Channeling my inner Jason Plato. With the windows up, this is pretty well insulated. This is kind of nice. See how this turning radius is. Swap spots with FedEx. This car is basically why the Miata exists. The Japanese imagined recreating the idea of the people's sports car, the people's roadster, because these were not wildly expensive. If you talk to anybody in sort of the baby boomer generation, someone that you know owned a Triumph TR4, TR6, or some other MGB, or some level of British sports car existed in their life one way or another, because they were relatively cool and exotic, but they weren't crazy expensive. They could be had, and especially if you had any mechanical knowledge, you could own them and operate them. But the Japanese were like, well, we like that experience, but what if that experience was better and didn't require constant roadside assistance? And that's where we get the Miata. That's where the NA is born. And it's a real shame that that's almost the last real version of an affordable sports car like this, an affordable roadster. This segment is just dead. And sure, like an E-Type is a more beautiful and cooler and far more expensive car, but that's the thing. You can still roll up in a TR6, pay a quarter the money as your neighbor with the Jag E-Type, and still be at the same places, still go to the British car shows, still be able to pop down for the ice cream or keep this at the summer house or whatever. And you kind of get similar attention. The average person is none the wiser. And you might say, well, you're not revving it out to redline. This engine, it's playful, it's fun, but it doesn't seemingly necessitate that super high rev. It does so much work down here. It's actually really impressive. So that is the natural power band that this operates in, is where I'm kind of shifting this thing. See if we can get away from all this nightmare. Unfortunately, this is the real world. We live in a place where there is traffic, there is potholes, there is people consuming our beautiful roads with trucks and boring SUVs and commuting and driving everywhere because, God forbid, their children ride their bikes anywhere. So we got to just put cars and cars and cars and cars on the road. And on the one hand, it's like points against these old vintage cars because maybe they don't like swimming slowly. Maybe they don't like bumper-to-bumper traffic. But on the other hand, it's a point against new sports cars, which are wildly expensive and also wildly capable. Like a regular Porsche, Boxster, Cayman, whatever, it's like a 190 mile an hour car, 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. I mean, these are fast, they're fun, they're great, but you almost can't use them. And this has that slow car fast thing going for it, where even just kind of dawdling around, I'm still quite entertained and happy. Again, I assure you that is not the case. Actually, let's check Waze. Let's check Waze and just compare. So this thinks we're going 80 miles an hour. 64. $63, $62. Okay, just so nobody complains that I'm ringing out this ridiculous high-geared cruise gear Triumph. No, we're only going about 65 miles an hour. Really nice on the highway though. That's the thing, is you can see why people enjoy driving these cars in period or even slightly thereafter, because when they were running great, they ran great. They just behave. I mean, this is a really lovely experience. I could get out on the highway, we could do this for hours and hours and I would be perfectly comfortable. Over the bumps. They paved that pretty well. That feels nice now. So, since I've already reviewed TR6s in the past, I did not feel compelled to go through all the nitty-gritty details of its historical significance or all the little technical details about the car. But what I think about this particular car, because of its restoration and because its restoration outweighs its value, I think it's an important lesson in preservation. And lately when I'm car spotting, sometimes the car spotting finds me, I get so excited to see cars that don't necessarily warrant any love financially. You know, I saw a Toyota Paseo convertible the other day and it blew my mind. I forgot about them, and because it's a car that is essentially worthless financially, of course no one would opt to keep one on the road and keep it moving. But when you do that over and over and over again, you do lose a snapshot of history of the economy cars, or just certain vehicles that we otherwise used to see everywhere and no longer see anywhere. The same goes for architecture. You might have these beautiful buildings in your town that are 100, 200, 300 years old, and maybe they get torn down because they're no longer effective at what they do. Maybe a more efficient building can be put up. Maybe it's a better use of space. But you lose a piece of history, and what goes up is often a little bit of a drag. I mean, imagine being in the UK and tearing down a castle to build a McMansion. Well, like, we could make more money if this castle wasn't here and we put up a bunch of little boxes. But is that better? Maybe for the wallet of the landowner, but not for the tapestry of the location. And I have so much respect for people who see value beyond finances, who see a car like this and know that they just want to keep pouring money and love into it because they want to see it at its peak, they want to see it at its best, and they want to maintain this history, because otherwise they just go away. And suddenly you're looking at a Plymouth Laser or a Dodge Shadow driving down the street, and you can't believe your eyes, because it used to be a car you saw every other vehicle, and now they just don't exist. Finding reasons beyond money and that return on financial investment is what it means to be a car enthusiast. And I think we unfortunately are brought up with the idea that art and famous artists are who they are because their art now has value. But so many artists that have paintings selling for $50, $100, $150 million are dead, and their whole lives they lived penniless and destitute. And you almost can't remember those pieces of that puzzle because you're just thinking, well, that's that famous thing that someone would have paid hundreds of millions of dollars for. They were painting for the love of the game. And I wish, now I'm getting a little too deep here, but I wish automakers would create cars. Oh, that was a big one. I could feel that in my chest. My soul was part of that truck hitting that bump. I wish automakers would make cars not for their finance departments to penny pinch and make things a little bit cheaper to make a tiny bit more money and hedge their bets on the sales of a vehicle, but to showcase the engineering prowess and capabilities and interest they have in offering something new, great, and interesting to the public. My ZR1! Oh, I gotta tell Bill Keeney, I saw a C4 ZR1, that's his favorite car. Great plate too. So let this car be a cheerful, emblematic reminder that the value of a car is not simply its resale value. And the reason I have to bring this up, the reason this matters, the reason is because all I hear people talking about is the values of their cars. All I hear is people saying, oh yeah, I bought this Porsche, this GT3 Touring, and I bought it for, $225 and I sold it for $310, and it's like, oh my God, is that all you see in this? As we dawdle along over this bumpy nightmare road in what is objectively one of the tightest TR6s, still rattling about. Honestly, not that bad, but I swear, this is as good as it gets. I want you to know that. Listen. Yeah, this is it. This is the best one. But it is a fun drive, and it is cheery, and I am happy right now. And it is a beautiful spring day, and I'm enjoying the proper top-down British Roadster experience. The good news is you can have this much cheaper than it costs to actually do this restoration and make it as good as it is. So if you're a buyer, like I said, if you're a buyer in the market of sort of depreciated cars, look for one that has been lovingly restored, where someone just spared no expense, because you will not have to pay for that resto. You basically got the resto almost for free, and then you got a beautiful example. Recalibrate this speedo and you're good to go. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thanks to Bog Group for tossing me the keys to this beautiful TR6 and reminding me what it is to be a car enthusiast, with or without a resale value on the other end of the resto. And yeah, that's it. Thanks so much. don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. What is that? Yes, okay, it's a tree service. I see, yes. I want to drive that. Oh my God, it's a thing that like you grab the logs and you take it in and there's a conveyor and saws. Good Lord, I want to see that in action.